So manufacturers will have the decision to alter their supply chains. Suppliers may be relocated out of China. Manufacturers may find suppliers in new locations, and even still, manufacturers may optimize existing supply chain operations. So again, we're looking at either relocating suppliers, finding new suppliers, or just optimizing the supply chain. So Erez, for you are on the board of, let's say, Ford Motor Company here, and they're bringing this problem to you. What is your response back to them?
Just as a trivia point, Ford Motor Company was the first company that adopted the SIT methodology. I think more than 20 years ago, and as part of their innovation process. That was way back. So Ford is already using SIT, which is great. Happy to be on the board. When it comes to supply chain, I think that the good news is that supply chain is one of the areas that most benefited from advanced technology in the last 20 years. It's just a revolution what's happening in supply chain management, from basic business models all the way to management controls, supply chain, margin management, procurement. It's really state-of-the-art technology. At the same time, and I mentioned that earlier, most companies will focus their innovation efforts on products and services and product performances, and not on areas such as accounting, legal, supply chain. And technology doesn't replace or substitute innovation. Okay? It's not only what you do, it's how you do it, it's how you approach it. And there's a lot to be done on supply chain innovation. I don't want to say it's a quick win, but I want to say that because it's very well managed and well structured, there's a lot of fixedness there. And I want to start by sharing two things. One is one specific type of fixedness that we all benefit or suffer from, and the second one maybe some examples on what happened when you do play a little bit responsibly, of course, with supply chain when it comes to innovation. So one of the 4 types of cognitive fixedness that we all have, called structural fixedness. Structural fixedness is our tendency to perceive things as a whole. We don't really like, or we find it hard to imagine things looking and performing differently than what we're already accustomed to. If our listeners are old enough to remember what is an ice box, try and put that image in front of you. Icebox was the grandfather of modern refrigerator. Was basically a box with 2 compartments. The top smaller one was a container that you put in an ice cube or an ice block, and the bottom one was larger, and there was an opening in between. And since cold air tend to flow down, you store your produce in the lower compartment, and they kind of benefit from the cold air that flows down from the ice block. And they were designed to do exactly that. When you look at modern refrigerators, I think about 80% of modern refrigerators are designed along the lines of icebox. And there's absolutely no reason for that. There's absolutely no reason to have that fixedness on the designer or the refrigerator manufacturing companies. And there's absolutely no reason for us to accept this fixedness as consumers. Why we all have, or 80% of us have the same type, I don't want to use any aesthetic characteristics, have the same bulky box at the corner of our kitchen looking the same way. Or you know what? Some of them are really adventurous, and I'm being cynical here, and they flip the order. So you have the freezer on the bottom and not on the top. But that's it. Okay? So this is a good example for structural fixedness. And we have that fixedness when we design products, when we design processes, and we offer services. And supply chain is one of those processes that characterized by this structural fixedness. I'm not saying suffer from structural fixedness, because fixedness have a very strong positive effect. Fixedness is designed to help us orient and think very quickly. So when you talk with a supply chain expert, they find their way around very quickly and intuitively because of that fixedness. It's a good thing. The only time in our life that fixedness gets in the way is when you want to invent something new. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to supply chain, there are a lot that we can do just by breaking that structural fixedness that we have inherently. And to give maybe 2 or 3 small examples of what happened when you do that. I want to start with a medical device company that we've been working with for many years now.
Okay.
We work with them on supply chain, and one of the things that they were bringing to the table is contracts with the annual contracts that you sign with your vendors.
Okay.
And usually contracts kind of look the same. You usually arm wrestle the same characteristics or the same attributes of the contracts. It's payment terms and costs and delivery times, etc. And using some of the SIT tools at the end of the process, they came up with some ideas that were really easy to test and figure out under which specific circumstances this is actually brilliant. For some of the raw materials, they changed the relationships with the suppliers. They created a bidding system. And now it's not about, pitching and wasting everybody's time on going over long and detailed contracts. There's a very simple bidding system. In other case, they decided to own the molds for the parts that they need to be manufactured for them. So from the supplier point of view, this is a much easier effort. You get the molds, you get the tooling, you get the templates. All you need to do is basically manufacture, which makes it much easier for you in terms of logistics, in terms of settings, line settings, training employees, etc. So by shifting part of the supply chain elements between different vendors and the company, this was a game changer. Another example was we've been working with a company called Havi Logistics. It's one of the largest movers, shipping companies in the world, and one of the challenges that they brought to the table was again part of their supply chain was that when a ship gets to port and needs to quickly unload and reload a lot of containers that needs to be then quickly trucked to the next step in the business chain, the bottleneck was the time that it takes to unload a ship. You need crane operators and you need forklift operators, and they work as fast as they can. But in any case, you end up with a very long line of trucks parking from the docking stations all the way to the port gates, waiting for their turns and wasting many long hours. Now, a common solution will be, buy more forklifts, invest in more cranes, and train and hire more operators. Now, this is a very logical solution. The problem is, or the downside is, what do you do with these people when the ship is gone? When it's done? They're still on your payroll, you still have to pay maintenance and employee benefits, and there's kind of a slack here or a waste that you maybe don't want to create. One of the ideas that they came up with and implemented successfully is that they offered the truck drivers that own that are certified operators of forklifts or cranes to actually, instead of waiting in line, to jump in and help. Now, in this case, everybody's happy. You don't have more people on your head count. You're only getting those people to help in peak times. And for the drivers, instead of complaining on wasted time, this is a quick and easy way for them to make an extra buck. And of course, they're highly motivated to work fast because they want They want to get as fast as they can to their truck, their place in line, and move on. So these are two examples that when you look at supply chain, you understand that there's a lot you can do. Maybe one last example, something, again, that for me, it makes a lot of sense to consider, and maybe it's already being addressed in the car industry, and maybe not, is last mile assembly or last 50-mile assembly. Do we have to assemble all parts of a car on the assembly line? Or can we think of a reverse supply chain where each member of the supply chain add another component to the final product instead of everything getting to the same time and having being assembled in one place? Now, maybe this is a really bad idea, but I will accept that as a bad idea only after I can see good reasons why and when we should have it, and then the challenges.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of speaks back to the fragmentation, right, of that question of the dental office, right? If you could fragment some of the services, then potentially you have the ability to maintain your customers still without having to lose them. And also back to your point of the contract negotiation. Again, these are speaking to points that there are these agreements that are already set up with your suppliers, and rather than perhaps finding a new supplier, maybe you're just going back to the actual contract and just renegotiating something that is already there, right? Again, this kind of speaks to that whole fixedness part. These are elements that within a business that you have these set models, and if you can just look to deviate from those set models, that could be the small innovation that could change everything for you. And again, there was no additional cost to you to have to bring on new products, new services, new labor force, nothing like that. So
not only that, we talk in recent years a lot about co-creation.
Okay.
And co-creation is being applied in most cases by sending ideas back and forth between suppliers and vendors and the company. From our experience, it pays to have teams going through the ideation process together. I think, I hope I'm right, but I think that the first client that approached us with this idea was Tetra Pak. That was, I think, 15 or more years ago. And they realized that as a main supplier, if their clients will do better, they will do better. So they decided to sponsor or co-sponsor innovation projects for their clients, making sure that they have, their people in the room participating and being able to quickly suggest solutions, technologies, materials, packaging machinery and expertise to be able to assess these ideas very fast. I'm sure that in the automotive industry, this is being done. I'm sure that there's a lot of collaboration going on. The only thing that I'm hoping is that these collaboration efforts are done in ways and using tools and methods that prove themselves to be very productive.
Yeah, and that one more thing to add to this, and I was just thinking of perhaps I'm going to patent this idea if it's a good one, if you sign off on it. And that is, with all these small businesses that do have these relationships and these vendors, perhaps one of the innovative ideas to alter the contract in coming out of COVID-19 is that perhaps with every contract now, maybe there is once a month a meeting that internally the staff has, but now all the vendors must also be on that, so that those vendors are part of the business, so they can, if they don't contribute ideas, at least they know what's going on, and it just helps ingrain that relationship with the vendor even more so. Would you sign off on that idea?
Absolutely.
Okay. I get the credit for that one though, yeah?
Yeah, it's yours. I'm good. I have to tell you, in my line of business, it's so exciting to be there when other people come up with these brilliant ideas or genius solutions. It's not about me inventing. I don't care for that. Just being there and looking at that facial expression, and knowing that this is addictive. Once you go
It is
through a
addictive,
process, once you go through a process that gear you up with the abilities and the proof that you can actually be as creative as the people you admire, it's you don't want to let go.
I hear you on that. Okay. So let's get to the last problem here. So the last problem we have is some founders who have endured other economic crises may not have the energy to climb out of this current economic crisis. It may be time to pass the buck to family or next in line executives. Founders may be stubborn about losing control, and other stakeholders may not want to broach this subject. All in all, passing ownership control will not be an easy task.